The Toaster War, humanity had fallen face first into an entire galactic community filled with every oddball dream-hazed race that we could imagine, and they had been there for a long, long time. We were no supermen, no heroes in the story. We were the weird guys who had been living in the middle of a busy universe and had never even managed to make contact, according to our briefings. Their children used to buzz the Earth for fun and pick up the odd human just to prove how dim we were. They were right, but for the wrong reasons. It was those childish idiots that brought us to space. Once we noticed the strange lights and bizarre craft, we watched the sky, and finally we took one of them down, a pitiful child, the child of a powerful and wealthy alien. The ransom was paid in tech and intel. We handed over the weeping, miserable thing without a moment of regret, and used the information to take down anyone else pissing about in our system. Our ransom was always the same. Now we know they thought they were getting their children back for the price of a toaster. But if you think about how many ideas, how many of mankind's first principles are embodied in a toaster, you can learn a lot. The power supply, the best bit. We learned how to make and store so much energy. Standardization. The aliens kept using the same parts, maybe, that implied a whole universal set of goods and services. We drew our own inclusions, and kept the academics busy for years. Then we began building a fleet. Nothing we built settled for the toaster standard, as we called it. We went bigger, better, and cheaper. They obviously loved their widge. It's their bells and whistles, but we wanted a fleet. We put in a coffee machine and called it good. How to weaponize a toaster? That was the question that boiled in the minds of our people as we began. We decided to try everything, every mad idea we had ever had. We had infinite energy and a long memory, so we built railguns, plasma burners, mag bottle bombs. If you ever played a game, we tried to engineer it and built it as well as we could. Someone finally talked. Some offended parent or wannabe politician decided we needed to be sent right back to their dark ages, back to being the sport of their children. And our first contact was officially when a minor fleet of council busybodies came to take away our toys and ban any further contact with their precious community. It didn't go to plan for them. We had a first contact protocol command that was by now was just waiting for this day. We had read what passed for intel after our interrogations of unwelcome guests, and several of us were reasonably fluent in at least one of aliens' languages. Not really the sort of deep learning we would like, but enough for the first day. Attention, Sol 3. We represent the Galactic Council, and you have been found guilty of egregious offenses against our laws. Your pitiful attempts to steal and extort from our community have been noticed, and no welcome will be offered to you here. You will surrender all void craft and remain within the low orbit of your home planet until told otherwise. We are prepared to enforce this immediately. The human fleet wasn't pretty, mainly steel boxes in space with nothing but a few numbers to tell them apart. No sleek sports versions, just tanks built against the finest enemies we could dream up. They moved from the shadows of the moons and planets and cut the alien fleet from its retreat. Admiral Tay was at the sharp end, 5'2" of pure warrior. His nation had sailed the world, while most of us were painting ourselves blue, and it showed. He was also accomplished in much of the alien babble. With a nod, he opened Cal's for our first day in the bigger universe that seemed to think so little of us. Welcome to Earth space. So kind of you to announce yourselves. This time we were growing tired of petty theft and assault that your people find so entertaining. In fact, we were beginning to wonder if we should still allow them to leave once they paid their bills. Simpler for us to just lock them up and throw away the key. The alien spokesman, ambassador, or whatever title it claimed, was a dark gray furry thing. It didn't appear particularly fierce. It bubbled some comment to itself, and the Admiral raised his eyebrow in response. You can hardly expect us to ignore the incursions. I imagine that if we started grabbing your people without reason or return turn, then I would be facing a bigger fleet. We are open to a treaty, perhaps even a tourism industry. We are not, however, going to be threatened in our own system. The alien was obviously surprised. The Admiral had understood his comment, and now seemed wary human. "We are not here to negotiate. Your predations are infamous, and we are tasked with carrying out the Council's decisions. Evacuate your ship to your home planet, and leave space to those born to it." The Admiral smiled at that. "Well, that's something we can find out quickly. I refuse your demands. Please leave." The alien cut communications. Admiral Tay gave the prepared orders, and mankind began their first war, flying in what they affectionately called toaster tech. "Begin." His officers swung the ship into its battle configuration. His second asked him curiously, "What did the gray fella say?" The Admiral smiled briefly. He wondered why anyone was interested in anything as bald and ugly as us. From the bellies of the human fleet launched 1,000 smaller ships equally as ugly as their boxy mother ships on the Council fleet. There were murmurings of outrage. "What are these creatures doing?" Senior Council member Loop stared at the blank screen for a moment and responded, "I would have thought that was clear. They have refused to comply and somehow think they can defy us." He turned to the military. "I leave this to you. Nothing of the humans is to be left outside of the low orbit of their blasted home world." The uniformed officer seemed uneasy. "Sir, I have no intel. I was unaware they even had ships capable of threatening us. Perhaps we could play for time just until my people can scan those ships." "At least," Loop grimaced. "Captain, they are primitives. They are flying metal boxes, children's toys. Put them down and get on with it." None of this was going to look well on his record. Not when people had started to ask questions about the minor infractions of his own people against these humans. Best if they just stayed out of the galaxy until it was all forgotten. He realized his fur was becoming disturbed and left the bridge before it was apparent to everyone. The captain started scrolling through the incoming scans, and he could make nothing of them. Solid blocks of metal bouncing about like PT flies. No incoming weapons fire, just a mess in the system. If they were information, he didn't see it. If they had some clever tactics or hidden plan, he didn't see it. This was supposed to be a discreet police action, not a war. Still, he had his orders: get the shields and weapons up, return fire. Only for the moment. I don't want a massacre out there. Someone get comms ready and demand surrender when they are a little bashed about. He watched the twisting human ships spin closer to his fleet, trying to persuade the targeting algorithm that they posed a threat. It seemed unconvinced and kept labeling them as a navigation hazard, not an incoming enemy. Nothing about them resembled a conventional ship. They didn't even match each other, let alone something he had trained to fight. Grunted with satisfaction when he managed to persuade the targeting computer that the things were a hostile navigation hazard. At least Admiral Tay was reading his own reports. The aliens had 11 ships, all scaled-up versions of some of the designs Earth had previously encountered that helped. He had been surprised and happy that the enemy hadn't opened fire yet. He wasn't sure if it was an issue with range or a political decision. He was certain that that was about to change as his men got closer and began preparing to carry out his own plan. His navigation officer called it out. "Sir, the enemy in range." He nodded. "Very well." He turned to his second. "Let them loose." There were 100 humans out dancing around the alien fleet, each with a squad of drones. From months of practicing, the pilots had worked out a system to fight as a swarm. Second Lieutenant Andress had spent her time ignoring that her 9 drone ships weren't actually attached to her. Now they were just mobile bits of her ship, and that seemed to be the most useful way to think of them. Other squads had found different ways. She punched up the music and swirled through space until a flashing light gave her the command. They were all waiting for free fire on the enemy engines. Disable and punch holes for the Marines to follow. She pushed up her speed and began what the Admiral had called the weapons testing phase. Time to find out if any of her pocket madness machines worked. She began with the weapon she disliked the most, a magnetically contained disaster that she felt uncomfortable flying beside. She pulled far above her target, one of the alien ships that seemed to be hesitating about its response. She pulled open her formation and opened fire even as her drone dropped silently towards the bulging nels of the enemy ship. The mag bomb blew less than 30 m from the Eng, punching through shields that the Admiral had assured her where they were at their weakest. He was right. And the engines folded with an almost audible crunch. She watched as the enemy ship twisted wildly and went dark. Nice, she called out to her comrades. The mag bomb worked to treat enemy target down. Moving on her way past, she blew out the rear port to allow for the Marines to drop in. The Admiral listened in as his people called in the weapons test. Plasma does all, sending it in hot. Suicide run successful. Engine dead. Rail gun punched a big hole, but the enemy is still maneuvering. Point defense shot up all my missiles, taking incoming evading drones, redeploying to surviving squads. Admiral Tay called out his orders. I want more of the mags, the rails, and set the plasma to suicide. Resupply now. More boxy little ships dropped. I want us close in. Send the crew to battle stations and begin prepping the Marines. I want to fly by on every broke bastard, and I want it boarded. Many of the newly dropped drones headed out to the remaining squads, but the others formed a screen across the mother ships as they moved to join the attack. I grinned as he counted the enemy disabled or dead. They were out of formation, and at least 2 were close to panic. Time to press the battle, particularly since he thought he had about 20 minutes before his crew ran out of power. Their second lieutenant, Andres, felt the drag on her systems as her resupply. See you up with her. She could probably cook steak on her CPU right now. She checked the load and cursed had sent her more mags. She hated the mags. Fine, someone else could hate them more. She had 6 enemy ships on her scans and punched all the bastards onto suicide runs. Sent them away. She had a better idea and pulled back to cover the Marines on the Council flagship. The captain was trying to fight fires, run a battle, and figure out what was going on. His crew were in shock, never having seen one of their sister ships burn in the dark. Neither had he been. That was the job. He felt it as his engines blew, hit by another infernal thing, some human weapon. He didn't understand. His power began to fail, and he made the last call. He had left comms. Tell those we surrender. Stand down. His comms officer looked worried. Sir, I can't tell them anything. That thing has wiped everything. I'm restarting, but right now I have no power. Get the council up here. They carry their own shielded comms. Senior council member Loop was frightened by the explosions, angry about the noise, and shocked when he and his fellow council members were escorted to the bridge by some angry crewmen. He snarled even as the lights started to dim. What have you done? The captain looked at him, ruffled and scared. What have I done? You just put me in the middle of an ambush by a bunch of lunatics that seem to have weaponized crazy. I have lost most of my ships, and I can't even surrender because they emptied all my systems. I want your comms, and I want them now. He nodded at the crewman, and it began searching the councilman's pockets. Loop hissed at him. No, you don't have the right or the rank. The crewman pulled the comms from the protesting councilman and handed it to the captain. He checked it and looked at Loop. My ships, my rules. Go find somewhere to sit until the humans arrive, and then you can babble at them until we get home. Admiral Tay was happily sending out the Marine squads when he was rudely interrupted by Victory. Attention, S3. This is Captain Petty, commander of the Council fleet. We surrender. Ceasefire. I ask that we be allowed to recover the wounded and dead. We await your response. Tay picked up the comms. Admiral Tay, Earth Defense Fleet Command. Of course, I'm sorry we had to fight it. All my Marines are pretty good at rescue and recovery. I'll put some squads at your command. I'm afraid I'll need to board your ships until the diplomats sort all of this out. We can transfer your wounded to Earth under your parole. I'm choosing to see this as a simple misunderstanding, so let's not start invoking anything more final. The alien captain snorted to itself. Thank you, Admiral. I'm not sure I want any further misunderstandings. I await your visit. Tay turned to his second. I want those captured ships emptied of their crew. Take the wounded to Earth, the rest onto whatever of their ships can fit them. Bring their damaged ships to the Mars shipyards. I want our people all over them as soon as possible. The aliens aren't getting them back. Tell Earth to prep for the interrogations and start pulling any maps we can find. Tell them to spend whatever needs to be spent. This might be our only chance to get a look at their Miltech from the inside. All right. Get the Marines out there and secure everything. Leave the flagship to me. The alien captain waited for the arrival of this admiral. He hadn't met a human, simply seen some of the acquired intel. He understood why the species was a little pissed at the Council for allowing pointless raiding and trophy taking on their world. Sometimes the galaxy was a lawless place, especially for the wealthy, and indulged. He had felt no little satisfaction when he had seen the miserable entitled child handed back with suitable lack of ceremony. He wondered how humans had got from there to here to facing off with his admittedly small fleet, and although he hated to acknowledge it winning easily, the admiral borrowed a few of the smaller Marines to form his security detail, except for one. For that he chose the largest human he had on the fleet, and dressed him in their heaviest armor. He loomed over the lot of them by nearly 50 cm. Tay let him stay at the back and hold his documents. The shuttle docked successfully, and he sent the men out first. Captain Peto watched as the humans marched onto his ship. It wasn't a good feeling, and he cursed the fools that thought primitive meant anything. If you didn't know who you were fighting, a predator is primitive, but it will still eat your face if you aren't careful. He stepped forward. Admiral Tay, welcome aboard. He knelt and presented his birth knife in acknowledgement of his defeat and shame. My life is yours in return for the safety of my crew. May you guard them better than I. He waited for his humiliation to be complete. Admiral Tay paused at the words. He was familiar with the concepts of personal shame, and indeed he followed much the same beliefs about his own honor. However, he had a question. Captain, this mission of yours, did you give the order to attack us? The alien said nothing. The admiral did. I thought so. Your honor is still yours. Indeed, I will rely on it to allow your men to refrain from any further misunderstandings. They will not be disarmed or imprisoned. Are we agreed? The alien stood and placed the knife back on his belt. He bowed low. I think we will be better friends than enemies, sir. My parole and my thanks. The council members wish to speak to you. Please follow me. Councilman Loop was angry and humiliated. These primitives had somehow wrecked his fleet and his plan. Nothing that had happened here would stay secret, and he was going to be asked a lot of questions. The sight of the creepy hairless creatures stomping about his ship was more than his temper could take. Only the obvious weapons in their stringy arms kept him silent. Admiral Tay was enjoying his chance to meet aliens on their own turf. The captured and terrified ones he'd met on Earth were a sad example of what the galaxy held. The gray furry one was obviously angry as hell. He could smell it from across the room. No need to ask who had been in charge of this little fiasco. He stepped forward without a word and waited. Human, you will regret this. The council will not tolerate such disrespect. It would be better if you abandoned whatever plans you have made and remain on your home world. That demanded a response. I don't know who you are to try and sentence my people to eggs. I see you are a slow learner. If you believe I stand alone, we know you are out here now, and we will find our place. Some of your idiots believed we are a slow race too dim to reach the stars, but they were surprised to learn that our civilization is less than 40 years old, that our gravity well is much stronger than yours. Your ancestors were uplifted, ours weren't. We got here on our own, and we will not be pushed back. The aliens sneered on stolen technology stolen from us. The admiral turned to the hulking Marine and waved him to the desk. This is what we took from you. You're welcome to it back. We learned what we needed. He opened the briefcase and emptied the contents out. The gutted toaster and its parts spilling out. Perhaps your people would like to build a fleet from that. 4 months later, the 3 remaining ships of the council fleet left with a human delegation to begin working on the treaty that would establish humanity in the stars. Councilman Loop was lost in an unfortunate airlock accident following his attempt to cause a mutiny. His body was never recovered or even looked for.